Welcome to The Explainer. Imagine this. It's August 2026, and the world is practically teetering on the edge of a total global standoff. Intelligence analysts, they're already calling it a direct mirror of the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. But here's the wild part. This time around, the geopolitical fault lines don't just run across oceans, they literally run straight through the DNA of a single individual. Today, we're going to unpack a fascinating, intensely multi-layered dossier that connects the very brink of World War III to an absolutely unprecedented molecular defense. Okay, let's dive into this and look at the agenda. We're going to start big with the macro standoff. That's the Caribbean Crisis 2.0, and look at the channels of power. From there, we'll funnel right down into the micro crisis, the Mirror of Exile, and this mind-bending genomic firewall. And finally, we'll wrap up with the righteous mandate and the diplomatic appeal. All right, let's get into it.
Section 1. The Caribbean Crisis 2.0, a global macro standoff.
To really grasp the stakes here, we have to look at this incredibly rapid escalation of threat vectors outlined in the briefing. The dossier lays out how Western-supplied hardware, specifically, we're talking about British Storm Shadow cruise missiles and Maritime Beak drones, are being deployed against Russian territories. In response to that, the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs issues severe warnings of direct strikes on UK facilities. And then, here's the real trigger point. An unannounced midnight flight by CIA Director John Ratcliffe on a C-17 to Moscow, delivering an explicit Article 5 ultimatum. It's this exact rapid-fire sequence of events that analysts have formally classified as Caribbean Crisis 2.0. The real danger here is how the traditional lines of proxy combat are becoming dangerously blurred. According to the briefing, the proposed setup of British military manufacturing inside Ukraine is viewed by Moscow as an irreversible kinetic provocation. So when you integrate these high-precision weapons, it basically brings the primary global actors right up to the very edge of the abyss. And the scary part? There's a severe lack of clear communication channels to de-escalate any of this.
Section 2. Channels of Power, Strategic Ambiguity. Now, what is absolutely fascinating here is how leadership communicates, or, purposely avoids communicating, under this kind of extreme global pressure. On one hand, you have the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs pumping out aggressive public rhetoric and explicit threats. But on the other hand, President Putin is maintaining a highly calculated strategic silence. According to the dossier, this isn't just an absence of policy, it's a highly sophisticated tactical maneuver. By refusing to engage publicly, it preserves an exclusive, direct channel to U.S. President Donald Trump, effectively bypassing all those state bureaucracies and deliberately creating an information vacuum.
But don't let that silence fool you. While the executive public channels are quiet, the dossier claims a lethal array of asymmetric operations are very much in motion. They call this the hybrid toolkit. It includes pushing advanced, high-precision weapons to adversaries of the US and UK, like the Houthis in the Red Sea, for example. The briefing also points to direct cyber warfare targeting British critical infrastructure, plus the use of non-state proxy actors to disrupt global trade. It's essentially a strategy of intense pressure, aiming to choke global maritime points without actually initiating a direct state-to-state war.
Section 3. The Mirror of Exile, the Micro Crisis.
So we take all those macro dynamics of this massive global crisis, and we find a precise micro-level reflection in one single man's story. Listen to this quote from Vadim Chernov. He's a Russian-born geophysicist who left Moscow back in 2014 due to political opposition. He says, "I have been sitting on my own Cuba for 12 years, expecting the arrival of Soviet troops claiming to be ethnically Russian, but in a perfect mirror reflection. He's physically trapped in Ukraine, which is basically the ultimate proxy front, and he's experiencing an exact inversion of that 1962 geopolitical hostage situation." To really ground these claims, we can look at the actual legal documentation, specifically case number HCR VVC 2026. This is a petition for a writ of habeas corpus filed by a firm called Gluboki Geoservice regarding his detention. The documents assert that Chernov is, for all intents and purposes, a sovereign investor trapped inside an active combat zone. They argue he's being treated as a hostile national, which has resulted in a legal internment, completely ignoring his deep ancestral alignment with Western Europe.
The petition actually maps out what it describes as a targeted campaign of physical and financial extraction. Chernov faced a 12-year exile starting in 2014, and during that time, he initiated a $190,000 wire transfer via BNY Mellon. But then, from June 2022 to December 2023, he was allegedly subjected to an 18-month arbitrary internment in a detention camp. And the real kicker? The stated target of this intervention wasn't just his frozen capital. It was the extortion of his proprietary Ralph 1 electromagnetic algorithm.
Section 4. The Genomic Firewall. Biological Asymmetry.
This brings us to a truly unprecedented legal defense. Faced with algorithmic standardization by state and commercial databases, Chernov is actually using his own deep-time DNA as an unalterable shield. I mean, wow. The dossier highlights the Oakington 04 fireball. This is an intact 11.1 centimorgan DNA segment on chromosome 22, which in genetic terms is a massive, unbroken chunk of DNA. Through some rigorous genetic triangulation on the GDmatch platform, this molecular code links him directly back to 5th century Anglo-Saxons and simultaneously to a verified representative of the historic Scottish clan Fleming.
So the crucial point here is the mathematical probability, 1 in 7,194, or 0.000139. That is the near impossibility of an 11 centimorgan genetic segment surviving totally intact without recombining across 1,500 years. That's roughly 60 to 80 generations. The legal briefing argues that these segments function as an informational heat sink. Basically, it's an indestructible biological archive of a decentralized transnational elite that temporary state apparatuses simply cannot erase.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the physical ties back to the intellectual. The dossier claims Chernov's predictive technology, ROLF1, which stands for Resilience Algorithm for Lossless Forecasting, is a direct manifestation of his deep ancestral lineage. His paternal Y-DNA R1b-U152 links him to the masters of Comacchini and imperial architects like Domenico Trenzini, the master builder of St. Petersburg. So his highly innovative modern electromagnetic inversion system is positioned as the literal modern-day continuation of the centuries-old engineering and structural building code. Pretty wild, right?
Section 5. The Righteous Mandate.
Moving from the genetic defense to the moral and historical mandates invoked in this international appeal, we examine the Gintaut-Zlotovsky lineage. According to the case files, Yad Vashem officially recognized Chernov's maternal ancestors back in 2012 as righteous among the nations for risking their lives to rescue Jewish families during World War II. Now, this profound Holocaust rescue legacy is currently being wielded as a legal shield. Advocates are arguing that it grants him binding international moral rights to physical safety, consular protection, and immediate diplomatic extraction by the state of Israel and Poland.
Section 6. The Diplomatic Appeal. Let's move to and see how this builds into concrete diplomatic action. The legal dossier maps out 4 specific demands presented to international courts and the Polish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Step 1. An immediate cessation of all arbitrary physical and digital tracking. Step 2. Consular transit and safe passage via the Dansk president, which is a border crossing marked by document TC0070110. Step 3 is the restitution of the $190,000 capital and total legal immunity for the Rolf 1 algorithm. And finally, Step 4, securing official recognition from the Court of the Lord Lion in Edinburgh for the dormant Clan Fleming chiefship.
The operating principle of this entire dossier is perfectly crystallized in the ancient motto of Clan Fleming, "Let the deeds show," which translates to "show yourself by your deeds." The core argument being presented to these international tribunals is that true sovereignty isn't just some paper declaration stamped on a passport by a temporary national border. No, they're arguing it is a hard, mathematical, and biological reality written into unalterable genetic lines.
Which leaves us with an incredibly profound final thought. As international structures increasingly rely on digital control, surveillance, and algorithmic standardization, will biological and historical archives become the ultimate firewall for individual sovereignty? It's a fascinating question about the very future of identity, caught between the crushing gears of global conflict. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. And as always, keep questioning the data.